Now recognize the gentlewoman from Iowa, Ms. Hinson, for 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today. And I apologize if you're hearing some banging. We're finally having work done on our house 2 years after a major storm. So, Director, thanks so much for the work you do. The CBO obviously provides such an important role for us as members of Congress with the legislation that we're considering. And with the runaway spending coming out of this Congress, combined with the historically expensive proposals that we've seen from the Biden administration, I know you've had your work cut out. The baseline in front of us today makes it very clear. Under this administration, costs are on the rise. Our debt has surpassed $30 trillion. Interest rates are rising. Your baseline projection back in February of last year was a 2% average inflation. And as you know, we are well past that today. Democrats continue to say the solution to this is to just spend more money and grow government. Well, President Biden wants to spend another $4.9 trillion on the Build Back Better agenda. It's Build Back broke, and the out of control spending is why we're seeing the numbers in front of us today. I've held a town hall in each of the 20 counties that I represent in Iowa, and there was a common theme across all of Northeast Iowa. It's that rising costs are the number one concern that I hear from my constituents here in Iowa. Families are truly struggling to make ends meet, and we have to get our fiscal house in order. Working moms that have to choose right now between filling up their tank and putting food on the table, the restaurant owner who is seeing those chicken wings rise in price, double in price, and they have to pass that on to their customers. Grandparents are on a fixed income. They're worried about making rent, and those folks have been left behind by what's happening with our economy, which is, again, a direct result of the decisions made by the majority party in Congress and the president in the White House. When OMB Director Young testified in front of this committee on the president's budget, I asked her last year, were they thinking inflation was going to be transitory? She said yes, and they weren't considering the impact of inflation. Then I asked her this year how they're projecting 2.3% inflation in 2023 and beyond. And the administration believes that, again, it would be transient and did not need to be accounted for the longer term. Well, clearly it has not gone away. Your baseline does say that will continue into 2023, but what does CBO account for here as far as inflation goes that the administration is ignoring?
So our baseline is based on current law. So we have just the fiscal policy in place. Additional fiscal action would put additional upward pressure on inflation. And so that's the thing that we don't have.
So when you talk about this is a miscalculation, and I think the American people, and if a small business had to budget this way, they would be out of business. And so when I look at this miscalculation by OMB, it really does affect their ability to make accurate projections. And so that's a huge concern for me. So I would ask you, what measures of the economic outlook does inflation impact the most?
Oh, okay. No, it's an important question. So there's 3 measures. So first is on the spending side, there's both what we call the primary deficit. So spending on everything the federal government spends on. I mean, social security benefits. I talked about jet fuel for the military. Home health care aids. All the things that the federal government directly or indirectly spends on. Inflation raises the cost of that. Inflation raises the cost of the net interest payments as well. The government servicing its debt. Higher inflation means higher interest rates, higher payments to the federal government. Inflation does also mean more revenue. And so, because we tax essentially nominal incomes, inflation translates into higher revenues. The net the net shows that the interest rates are the danger, that higher inflation leads to a worsening deficit because of the higher interest rates and higher interest payments.
So because of these changes and fluctuations in the economy, they have, in essence, impacted your projections, I'm assuming, with your last baseline. So can you kind of delve into that a little bit, how those have changed?
Okay, no, absolutely. It's compared to, I'm just thinking about over the 10-year outlook. The 10-year outlook has gone from, it's just over 12 trillion to over 14.5 trillion. And so revenue has gone up. So this is, again, looking at 10 years, we see as revenue going up by more than it's like 3.4, an additional $3.4 trillion, its outlays go up by more. And part of that is legislation, part of that is the economic effects, such as higher inflation. And that's what's driving the increased deficits, going from 12 trillion to 14.5 trillion over the 10-year horizon.
All right. Thank you, Director. And I see I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. Thank you.
Gentleman's time has expired and now recognize